Right, we'll just give it a couple of minutes. We've got, as ever, packed agenda, and it's wonderful to see you all. 53 people in the meeting. That's amazing.
Lorna,
in fact, yes.
Can I ask you a question? How are we going to run through my slides? Do I just say?
You should be able to share your screen.
I've got them here. I've got them here ready.
Oh, there you go. Will's got them. So you'll just have to give us the nod to the next.
Okay, very good.
Right, I'm going to make a start, folks. We're normally a little bit more relaxed about that, but we've got quite a lot to get through today. And there's people coming in left, right, and centre. Goodness me, they must have heard we're giving away free cakes this morning or something. I did joke with Will last time. You know, wouldn't it be lovely if we could get Starbucks or one of the other coffee companies to deliver a coffee to you wherever you are in the Solent whilst we're in the meeting? But I think that might be a bit tricky. So good morning. It's July already. We're in the middle of a heat wave. I hope those of you that are by the sea have got access to the sea, have got a boat that you can get on, borrow. Paddle boards seems to be the new in thing. I think Will and I need to get one each with the MUK logo on it. That would be really cool. And welcome back. So we're nearly at a year since we launched this network proper. Next month it will be a year, and we've had some extraordinary speakers during that time, and the network of contacts that we have, that people that receive our network, has grown to way over 650 now, which is incredible. So we'd like to do a bit of a celebration and a bit of PR, and see if we can encourage some other organisations to join us in the network in time for the anniversary in August. So if you would like to, and I'm happy to, we would like to be interviewing a few of you just for very short video interviews about the Maritime UK Solent community. And if you've got something to tell us about what you've got out of attending these meetings over the last year. So if we'll be organising that over the next few weeks, but if that's something that you would like to be part of, if you can just drop Will or I a message or pop something into the chat, and we'll be in touch over the next few weeks. Okay, so this morning's presentations are a little bit different. Today it's about physical developments on the Fawley Waterside site, and also on Lennox Point in Portsmouth. And I've been speaking to the people from each of these teams, and I thought it was a really good opportunity for you all to hear directly from them as to what the plans are, what the proposals are, and what the hope is that each of those developments would bring to the area. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Aldred, who is going to take control of the meeting. And there'll be an opportunity for you to ask him questions towards the end of his slot. We've also got colleagues, we've got Mike and Megan from the Lennox Point project in Portsmouth, they're our next speakers. And then later on in the meeting, we've got a request from a local school that's looking for some help from the maritime community, Emma. So that's the running order for today. Okay, so Aldred, over to you.
Lorna, thank you. What I'm proposing to go through today is a draft document that sets out the commercial opportunity for maritime businesses at Fawley, with a focus on the Freeport. So, Will, if you wouldn't mind flicking on. Next slide. So this is the consented development at Fawley Waterside. It totals a substantial area of both commercial and residential space, and will start in 2022. Demolition is in progress, and the chimney will be coming down at the end of October. For those in the maritime community that are worried about their navigational skills, there will eventually be a replacement chimney, not as high, which you can see in the centre of that picture, with the light at the top of it. So I'm hoping that those who are refreshed after Cowes Week will still be able to get their way back up the Southampton water, but without the aid of the giant cigarette. If we flick on to the next slide, please, Will. You will have seen from the previous one that there's a large commercial zone in the north, and this is very much focused on the maritime sector. We are intending to build a very beautiful town, one that has a great sense of economic purpose, and as said, very much focused on maritime. And this paper is looking for marine businesses that are seeking to locate in what will be the largest purpose-built maritime complex in the UK. It's about 50 acres. And Fawley Waterside will act as the master developer with a strong alignment with its tenants, seeking to help it with every locational need, build the buildings, and also help with the economic ecosystem. Next slide, please. The vision, as I said, is that we will be very involved helping where we can. Clearly, everybody on this call knows that we sit within already a very strong marine ecosystem, and that's why we've chosen that 20% of these areas gross value add comes from maritime. So there is a great deal of innovation already in this area. There's a fantastic access to talent, and if we believe that if we focus a marine centre of excellence, the collaboration and clustering effect with the strong assets that Fawley Waterside has, that I'll come on to later, will really create something of international brilliance. Next slide, please. The free port, this is a hot topic at the moment, and the outline business case we expect to be submitted by the Local Enterprise Partnership at the end of this month. And it has some very significant tax advantages, particularly to businesses that want to invest significant amounts of capital, and businesses that want to expand with investment in new plant and in new people. If you go on to the next slide. So if I draw your attention to where we think the biggest wins for Freeport sites are, that would be in enhanced capital allowances, which allow you to write down up to 100% of your plant and machinery costs within the first year, and business rate relief. Those two things are, I like to think of it as almost an enterprise zone on steroids, and really do encourage businesses with high capital costs in high value manufacturing to locate here. And they're very much looking for new businesses, not existing businesses relocating in the Freeport. And I'm pleased to say we've got some very, very strong interest from some national, if not internationally important businesses. One of the businesses, the investment value must be somewhere in around about 150 million, and would be for about 1,000 employees. And I won't take questions on who they are because it's commercially sensitive at the moment, but just to give you a flavour. And that business, it's potential that it's new business for them. I mean, they're an existing UK business, but this is new business for them. And there's a chance they would have located that new part of their business abroad if it wasn't for the Freeport advantages. So this is really going to be a very, very significant thing for the Solent region, and something that we're obviously very supportive of. Next slide, please. I think go back one, Will. I think you jumped. I don't think we probably need to go over this actually, because this is everyone's very familiar with where we are. Next slide, please. The site plan, just to give you some characteristics of the site. There's the potential for around about 2 million square feet of commercial space. The actual planning consent is for 1 million square feet, but that's on single floor plate massing in the northern quarter, and you can see those buildings in the top there. So that's assumed there's only one floor, because we don't know how those are going to be occupied yet. So clearly, if you put 2 floors in, you double the commercial space. But it is part of a wider town, so there'll be lots and lots of interest for the workforce, for people to be able to buy homes here, and for restaurants, food and beverage, and a marina. So there's a boat stack for 600 boats and about 100 wet berths. The very strong focus on residential as well. As I said, that's about 2 million square feet of residential. There will be affordable housing at up to about 35%, and a full spectrum of houses from large marine villas down to small flats. So really across the spectrum of affordability. Next slide, please. Some of the obvious benefits to Fawley is its scale. We have the legacy of the power station, which includes the largest unsupported basement in Europe, which we can convert part of to a canal. We are regularly receiving vessels up to 80 meters at the moment. That is tidal, and so the canal will have a tidal lock, which gives you water depth of at least 8 meters in the locked area. And we can take boats up to 15 meters in width, which is constrained by the entrance to the old power station port. As said, the concept is to build somewhere of unrivaled marine expertise, and we've been looking at new build boat shipyards that want to build new boats, refit, and general marine businesses that are complementary. Next slide, please. There is significant investment going on around the Solent area, which again, many of you will be familiar with, particularly on this area. We've actually started the improvements to the lower section of the A326. The LEP granted us 5.8 million. Fawley Waterside's topped that up with another 2.5 million. And that is on site now. The large local majors project for dualling the northern section of the A326, the outline business case has been submitted to the DFT, and a preferred route is being promoted by the county council. I should say that's along the existing route, but the preferred improvements to that route have been are in consultation with DFT now, and also rail. So there is an existing rail line that runs all the way down the waterside, was used till very recently by Exxon. It's still used by Solent Gateway, and it's a very relatively easy railway line to reopen to passenger traffic, and is part of the Restoring a Railway Fund. And I believe that's shortly going to be taken over by Network Rail to proceed to the full business case. Next slide, please. We've been strong. The part of the project is of high focus on technology and technology businesses as well as marine businesses, but obviously they're interconnected. There shortly will be started a major upgrade via Vodafone to the fibre network, giving unlimited connectivity and another strand of resilience. And we're also looking at how we can connect up through satellites. And we've got a project ongoing with a major satellite provider at the moment. So the site will be one of the most connected sites in Britain, if not the most connected site in Britain. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the specialist marine infrastructure beforehand. Here on the bottom slide, you can see how we are expanding the port area by taking out some of the water intakes and then going into the basement area and up the canal to the right. As said, we can take most vessels up to about 100 meters in length, with the constraint is really the 50-meter entrance. They obviously have to come in at high tide because the water level drops to about 2.7 meters at low tide. Next slide, please. One of the great challenges in the world today is attracting the right talent. That seems to be top on the list of all employees. And having this very attractive location with a lot of vibrancy because of the other uses, which are not just commercial, but include houses and a school and food and beverage and all sorts of other different activities as you would expect in a new town, plus this extraordinary environment on the Solent and Southampton water shore and right in the New Forest, we think is going to be, and then with huge connectivity, particularly with work from home and the sort of decentralization of people's activities, I think it's going to be hugely attractive for people and will help attract people to come and work in the businesses that are there. Next slide, please. There isn't really anything like Fawley in the area. There are lots of marine businesses. Obviously, we're very rich in marine businesses, but they're scattered around the Solent. And so this gives them, as I said, an unrivaled opportunity to cluster a lot of businesses in one place. There are, if you look at super yacht refit, I suppose the only really world-class yard is Pendennis, which is 200 miles away. So that we believe there's a major gap in the market for what we're proposing. Next slide, please. And you can see the location of Fawley. It really does act as a sort of nexus between Southampton, the Isle of Wight, and Portsmouth. Next slide, please. Very strong endorsement from County Council, from the Local Enterprise Partnership, very close working relationship with those two important authorities, which we will continue to foster over the years. And lots of great research has been done by both organisations, which we've used to help frame our economic offer. Next slide, please. Again, the Chamber of Commerce, the Business South, Confederation of British Industry have always all been very supportive. Next slide, please. Just a quick snapshot on benefits from two businesses locating in Freeport. As said, you get, as you saw before, the enhanced capital allowances with CapEx investment in the first year, enhanced building allowances, a holiday on national insurance up to £25,000 of wage for your new employees. If you total all these up over a 10-year window, particularly for it really is more and more attractive. The bigger you are, the more capital you're going to put in, the more attractive it is. But as you can see from here, can be extraordinarily beneficial. Next slide, please. This is the Northern Quarter. It's a master plan. It really is an illustrative master plan, and we can build what you see there. But we will be looking for businesses to tell us what they want. So I'm expecting this master plan, though well considered. Great help from Mike Ward, who was very much part of this project and continues to be so. But we are extremely flexible. I think the one parameter that exists that is fixed is the buildings are limited to 25 meters in height, but pretty much everything else can be changed. Next slide, please. And these are some illustrations of what the buildings could look like. Concentration on high design, using modern materials, and making sure that it fits with the rest of the town. Next slide, please. So there we go. You can see the master plan in a bit more detail. And those buildings range from sort of 100,000 square foot footprint. The vessels that you can see, to give you an idea of scale, are 50 meters in length. So you can accommodate a very substantial vessel in there with relative ease. I think that's the end. Next slide, please. That's a view of the current permitted master plan in white card, and you can see the port, the wet berths, the dry stack facility, which is being designed by Capria in Argentina. They run dry stack facilities of up to 3,000 boats. So at 600 boats, they twice the size of anything in the Solent is a relative minnow in world terms. Next slide, please. That's the site as was before we started demolition. We're most of the way through demolition now, other than the chimney and part of the boiler house building, which will be coming down shortly. Next slide, please. There we go. Thank you very much, Lorna. And Will.
That was super. Goodness, that was a lot of information, Aldred. I hope you're not going to test me with questions, but I love it when you can see the you can see what you're hoping it's going to look like. Really, it's over to everyone else there. Do we have anyone who's got questions? If you want to put your hand up if you've got a question, I think that's probably the best way to manage this morning, because we've got 71 of you in the meeting now. So happy to take questions, folks. Simon, do you want to ask yours?
Yeah, sure. Hang on, my videos. I was just going to say, one of the high spots of going down to Calshot was the Flying Boat Pub. It was a really, I know that they had social problems there, but will you be building infrastructure outside of the park, or will it become more of a sort of gated community?
No, there's no intention to build a gated community. This is a new town, so there's no gates or anything. It's fully inclusive.
I don't mean gate, but are you focusing on building outside of the area?
Well, we have some improvement plans for Calshot as well as part of the project. So there's a very substantial landscape plan covering about 300 acres around the project. So it'll be a major investment in everything around Fawley, including clearing up the rubbish dump that's been left by a tenant that unfortunately died, but left it in a great mess. So there's various sort of local improvements that are going to be undertaken.
Thank you.
Can't hear you, Lorna.
Do you know? Well, that's just the first time today that someone's going to tell me I'm on mute. It'll say that on my gravestone. Lorna, you're on mute. Julia P, you've got a question for us. Are you there? Shall I ask it? Julia P is saying, an amazing project. Thank you. Will there be a provision? Oh, I've lost it. It's just jumped. Will there be a provision for local fishermen or trawler berths?
I don't think so. No, there's it's not something that's come up, so we haven't considered it as yet. Nobody's made a representation for that, and I don't know what the current availability is for trawler berths in the area. It's something that we can look at, but that'll be the first approach somebody's made.
Okay, Julie, do you want to come back with a second question on that one, or? No, I don't think so. Okay, there's another question here. David Robinson. I think we've stunned everyone to silence. Oh, you're there. Lovely. David, on you go. Ask your question.
Hi. I was just interested in the total investment, particularly on the commercial side and the marine facilities for Fawley Waterside. And also, when do you envisage the marine companies that will be taking up sites sort of starting operations?
So the completing the demolition, David, is what we have to do first, and that will have a complete, clear and clean site by the end of 2022. But we'll be looking to put infrastructure into the site in a rolling program from about April 22. So the demolition doesn't need to be entirely complete before infrastructure development starts. And in fact, we've done quite a lot of infrastructure development already. We've upgraded power, gas, and we're on site improving the roads up the A326 at the moment. In terms of total investment, it's over £1 billion total investment for the whole project. And the commercial, we very much see as being brought forward as the initial piece. So commercial will actually run ahead of residential.
Okay, next question is from Tim Willis. Tim, do you want to ask that, or do you want me to do it? Here we come.
Well, it is as I've written it. So it's just a question about the net zero, with net zero carbon targets becoming more focused and perhaps more certain in terms of how you measure and apply that. I wondered how that was being addressed.
Yes, that's very much on everybody's forefront of everybody's thoughts at the moment. In terms of biodiversity enhancement, we're in a good place because we have a lot of additional land around Fawley Waterside that we have an extensive programme of biodiversity improvement and landscape restoration. So that bit is for us relatively easy and difficult for others. In terms of energy generation, we're looking at the usual energy supplies such as solar, but we're also looking whether we can take waste heat from Exxon, because currently they have a lot of surplus heat. And there's a lot of interest in the hydrogen sector. And that's something that is new to us over the last year, but is something that we're pursuing with great vigor. We have a chief technology officer who spends a great deal of his time on renewable or decarbonisation. In terms of building materials, that's improving all the time. And we are looking at modern methods of construction, local sourcing where possible, and just making sure that the buildings are built in a way which considers both the embedded energy and also the energy of operations. Thanks.
Right, I'm gonna ask the questions, I think, because it's there are as they're written in the chat. So Michelle is asking, could you expand on the access to talent pipelines, particularly apprenticeships?
Sure.
So the development making a commitment to the training of job seekers and young people.
Absolutely. As part of our Section 106 agreement with both the District Council and National Park, we made a commitment to having apprenticeships and very much looking at supporting that all the way through. So right from the easier one for us to deliver is through the building side, but also then what we've been working extensively with the local educational community, that's colleges, universities, and the local schools. That's very much at the forefront of the project.
Okay, brilliant. And then I've got 5 more messages, so I think we'll have to limit it to that because unfortunately Aldred's got to go to a I'll run through these questions quickly, but you've got to shoot off to another meeting.
Yeah, I mean Mike Ward might be able to answer some questions if they're marine focused later.
So Anthony Bennett is asking when the chimney is planned to come down, please.
End of October.
Okay. Next question, Chris Hems. What type of lifting equipment is planned? Travel lift or synchro lift?
Synchro, that's an interesting question. I mean, at the moment, wise travel hoist is the obvious solution. But we have considered synchro before. There was actually a large synchro lift available in Japan that we looked at, which was effectively going for scrap. But it depends on the tenants. You know, if we have tenants that need that sort of heavy lifting capability, that will obviously drive us towards synchro. But in the plans that you saw, that was based on a travel hoist.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here from James Arbour. Will there be a focus on clean growth marine technology for the businesses that can locate there?
Yes, so this is part of the hydrogen story, is actually mainly focused on fuels and bunkering rather than hydrogen for the town's energy requirements. Though, of course, that will be a component. So very much so, yes. And we've been looking at autonomy, electrification, water taxis, and quite a wide range of businesses have approached us with interest in Fawley Waterside.
Fantastic. Right, I think we'll stop there. There is just one other question, which was a second question from Julia about how, where she was asking about trawler berths and how they could raise that question if no one has yet. But I'll make sure that we provide you with an email address to follow on with that,
Sure.
Julia, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Aldred, massive thank you. And that it's really interesting. I hope everyone is as excited about the prospect of this coming. And that's only half the story this morning, because we're now going to shift over to the Portsmouth potential development as well, or development. I'm going to get into trouble for saying potential probably. So we're joined, Aldred, thank you so much. Please do stay as long as you can, but I understand that you've got another meeting to shoot
that's
to.
okay. Yeah, no, Mike keeps me well informed about what's going on in Portsmouth. So
I'll stay anyway, Aldred.
And
okay,
you're happy
thanks.
And you're happy for us to share the PowerPoint? I think we'd already checked.
Yeah, please
that.
do.
Yeah,
please
we'll
do.
do that with everybody afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Wonderful. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Megan, and so whilst we're in the place of thinking about these extraordinary developments on our doorsteps, the other one that I wanted you to learn more about is Lennox Point. So we have Mike and we have Megan with us this morning from Portsmouth. I'm going to hand over to you.
Wonderful, and I'm going to work out how to share the correct screen. So just give me a second, because for some reason, apologies, hang on.
We are seeing your slideshow,
yeah,
just not on full screen.
No, that's fine. We should be coming to you now. Sorry, apologies. Technology's a wonder. There we go. That should now be sharing. Sorry, I'm like a true Bond villain. I've got so many screens, it's ridiculous. Good morning, everyone. And this is probably the fourth time that we've presented alongside Fawley, and it's great to see their proposals. It's such a fantastic project. And the question we always get asked is, oh, are we in competition? You know, what do the two sites? And I think, you know, previously when we've been asked that question, the two sites complement each other beautifully. So we're delighted to be presenting to you guys today alongside Fawley. I think it really does show the breadth of the opportunity within the Solent. So my name is Megan Carter. I'm the programme manager for the proposals at Tipner West, which have now been rebranded and renamed and are called Lennox Point. I lead the consultancy team and the internal teams as well. This is just a sense of who we kind of have involved. Some of you who will have been in the area for long time or may have heard me presenting over the last couple of years, the team has significantly grown, and we have a really amazing group of consultants helping advise on this scheme. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the scheme and kind of where we're up to, and then I'm going to hand over to Mike Ward, who's going to talk you through the maritime proposals and the marine employment sector hub. So the first question I always get asked is, where is it? So when you're driving into Portsmouth, on the right hand side, there is a large crane and it is the piece of land there. I'm going to try and move my mouse. Hopefully it will give you a sense of where that is. So this is the site that we're looking at. Some of you may remember it as a submarine graveyard. Some will know it as a boat breakers yard. Some will know it as the MOD firing range. Some will know it as our Brexit COVID car park. So yeah, this is the site you're looking at. Incredibly lucky to have, you know, a site of this scale, junction one of a motorway, you know, right next to a park and ride. In terms of connectivity and location, then this site is an incredibly unique opportunity. And just to give you another sense of the sort of viewpoints and location, hopefully there we go. So again, you've got junction one here, park and ride here, proposal for development on this site here. And then you've got obviously looking out to Portchester Castle and Portsmouth Harbour itself. So this is the site that we're looking at as proposed. And as I say, it's always the first question I get. I'm not too sure people know unless you've been onto that site, which obviously it's previously being MOD owned. It's not something that people would have necessarily come across. So a really interesting and unique opportunity, not without its challenges, but a unique opportunity for us in Portsmouth. Now, when we were taking out doing the rebranding, and we are a little bit behind Fawley in terms of our proposals and where we are. So we're sort of still in our initial kind of you know, visioning and master planning at the stage, a little bit behind Fawley. So when we took this out for rebranding, it was really interesting, some of the images that people drew as to what they felt this place could be. And obviously, you know, Portsmouth Pride came out strongly, but this real sense of community and this real sense of green and the environment, and these selection of images that we asked the public as essentially Blue Peter homework to do, I just think gives you a nice sense of what we wanted to be able to create for the residents of Portsmouth. So when we approached this project, it really was about understanding what was the art of the possible. What were the existing trends that people were going to want us to address? How would people want to live and move in the future? And could we design somewhere that was fit for that future and had that sense of stewardship right to the end? So we didn't just hand it over and it was able to be developed out as a housing estate. It had to be something that could allow people to live life differently, and that's anyone who wanted to be able to live life differently in response to the climate emergency, or with how they move, or how they engage with their environment, or how they engage with their community. We talked about putting health and well-being at the core of everything that we were doing. We talked about having a development that could tackle loneliness and isolation. And, you know, conversations as these things do, we talked around, okay, what is it that makes people nervous when they walk out of their homes? Is it bollards? Is it curbs? Is it cars? And we started to talk about actually this pedestrian first environment. So everything we were doing was making sure that the pedestrian was at the heart of it. And we also looked at being responsive to, you know, as responding to those existing trends. We looked at this, you know, the climate emergency that we now find ourselves in. We do a lot of work with the schools, and actually the local schools, you know, the younger generations coming through, their climate is above and beyond a concern for them. They are so keen to see something brought forward that allows them to live a life that does look after their planet. And the questions, you know, that we've been asking this morning is about green, is about renewable energies, it's about, you know, and putting that into somewhere that was embedded was obviously incredibly important to us. The site, as you saw, a very unique opportunity to bring people closer to nature and to the water, but not necessarily, you know, just for that moment of tranquility, that moment of peace, to be able to put their health and their mental well-being at the heart of their location. And we've got some great stuff happening in the city. So allowing, as you can see from those images, such a gateway into our city, and really being able to showcase the best of Portsmouth. So a unique opportunity. Now, whenever I talk about that, it all sounds a bit fluffy. So as these design principles often are, what does that mean? What does that tangibly mean? And on our website, you'll be able to see the series of commitments that we've made around each of our design principles. And these are being developed and added to as we go. And as things progress, more and more commitment coming out from us as a team as to what we can deliver to make these tangible and real for people. So when we say pedestrian first, what does that mean? And these are all available on our website for you to have a look at. The site proposals itself are about 3,500 new homes. We've got about 2,500 jobs on site, which over 1,700 of those are proposed to be in our Green Marine Employment Hub. We've got an enormous contribution to the city, and a really interesting opportunity as well for our supply chain. These are our current master plan proposals. And again, these are very illustrative. We've got a render in the bottom left-hand corner, which again, you can see on a wider scale on our website. And we'll also be circulating a document to you with these images in them. And on the website soon, there'll be a live version of this master plan where you can click into the various areas and see the progress that we're making. As with all these things, these are subject to, you know, changes and various updates, but the website will be our most up-to-date location with all of the imagery and relevant information that you can find. A really interesting opportunity. The key bit on this as well is some of you, the aware of you in the room will have seen that in our illustrated master plan, it doesn't quite look the same as the existing landmass. We are actually proposing 27 hectares of land reclamation, which those of you, again, who've been in the area, you'll know that's very much part of Portsmouth's history. We've reclaimed various different areas across the city, particularly the likes of Port Solent, Milton Common, Southsea Common. This is something that we're very used to doing as an island, but not without its controversy. Picking up on the jobs piece, these are the sorts of jobs that we've been scoping with the careers teams and the internal teams, because obviously we're taking this out to across different career opportunities across the whole of the city and making sure that school curriculums align. So as and when these jobs come forwards, you know, Portsmouth residents are able to take on the jobs that we're hoping to provide. And again, this will be circulated in more depth for you to have a look at. In terms of deliverability, it's a complex, large-scale scheme, and interesting, you know, that we're here today talking to you as a market. That conversation started very early with all of the market. We had an industry day in 2019 where we said to people, you know, we can't do this without you, the market, helping inform us and being able to identify the gaps and understand what the market would want to deliver. And that engagement, I'm pleased to say, has continued on since 2019. We have developed the likes of a balanced scorecard, which says actually these are the values behind our proposals. This is what we want everyone to be able to sign up to. This is what we want to commit to. This is kind of leading the way in program management of sort of large scale regeneration schemes, and being able to set this very early on. This is this is actually quite a detailed version. You wouldn't necessarily want to see that at this point, and this is something that the Infrastructure Projects Authority support, and it is a great way, and we're really seeing schemes coming through this. We wanted to be able to say that actually together we could deliver a very different environment, and we didn't just want buzzwords. We wanted to have accountability for everyone that was getting involved, and this is our guiding compass through everything that we're doing, to make sure that people are aware of how we want to deliver it. What are the values behind what we're trying to achieve? We also have started to, well, look at our packaging strategy. So what are the packages that were starting to be put out to the market? How was that organised? How could we engage with the different sectors? And we're taking all this back out to see if the market agrees with us on this. We've had various different surveys and things like that that have gone out, and this just gives you a sense of kind of the sorts of responses we're getting. So even a year later, well, 2 years later, we're still getting sort of 200-300 companies from various different sizes all across the country getting involved. So it's a really interesting program for the market to be engaged with, and starting that engagement so early has allowed us to, you know, develop the principles based on what the market want to achieve. So it hopefully, you know, when we get to that point, it will be something that the market is ready to go with. We'll also have a market day in September, and I'm sure Mike will be talking to you about the industry engagement we've been doing specifically with the marine and maritime sector. As I indicated before, we are a little bit behind the likes of Fawley, and we have got a public consultation subject to the local plan going out in the summer. We've got a public consultation coming in the autumn, which will be our third engagement with the public. Loads of stuff happening with the schools and communities day to day. Oh, did everyone hear that? I'll just carry on. And then we are looking to go into our legal review of our planning application and looking to submit late summer of next year. So with all these large scale schemes, it all seems like jolly long time scales, but lots happening in between now and then. So we are really coming to the end of what has been a really long history with this site and the proposals. We're looking to start on site summer of 2024 with the marine employment and phase one being a key starting point for us. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Mike. Hopefully you're there, Mike.
I am, Megan, if you can stop sharing screen.
There we go.
Hopefully share the right one. And just check, can someone just confirm that you can see my screen? Lovely, thank you, Lorna. So yes, I want to add a little bit of flavour to the marine employment, but first introduce myself. I'm Mike Ward, Managing Director at Marina Projects Limited. And as you would have heard, we've been very busy across the Solent. We are working on both the Fawley Waterside project and the Tipner Lennox Point project. And we've been involved in both schemes for about the same time, around 2016, 2017. And obviously been very open with both clients about our involvement in the projects, how we see them as being complementary. So I'll try and touch on some of those, but I appreciate there may be some questions that arise out of the two presentations. So what I want to talk to you in terms of Lennox Point is a little bit about the context, some of the constraints and opportunities, how we respond to that, the background to the proposals and how did we decide that there would be marine employment and the opportunity there, our market intelligence, establishing what the sector requirements are, and then how all of those 3 points inform the concept proposals, and then in turn, start to look forward, our marine sector survey, how do we start to flesh out those concept proposals and ensure we're delivering exactly what the market requires. And I'll wrap that up in a quick summary. So Megan's touched on, the location, but, the context I think is really important. Great connections, both by road and by sea. We are a key coastal location, very much within the heart of Portsmouth Harbour, providing access to Portsmouth Harbour. But I think it is that wider connection to the Solent and the Solent maritime economy that really adds value for both of these projects. In terms of the Tipner site, we did a lot of work early on looking at the constraints and opportunities. And in large part, those constraints that exist the prevailing weather conditions. There's a good degree of shelter provided up in the northwest component of the site. There's shallow water at the site, but deep water some 600-700 meters away, so we can provide full tidal access in relatively straightforward form. There are some significant designations. We know we have to address that. The importance, the value of the scheme is very important. The motorway, of course, it's in close proximity, provides great connections. In terms of the wider development, it creates a bit of a noise barrier. It creates a bit of an issue there, but actually positioning the marine employment next to that, the constraint actually combines the two. We've got zones of disturbance and contamination around the existing site. There's an opportunity to tidy that up. So we're comfortable that we can address the vast majority of those constraints. We've still got some significant work to do. We know that on the environmental side, and that work is progressing very well. Lengthy, full-scale discussions with Natural England, the Environment Agency, and all those various other NGOs involved in that process. So turn to the background on why marine employment at Tipner. Well, it really that came out of the City deal in 2013, which in turn arose from a decision by the government to stop shipbuilding in Portsmouth Harbour. And that decision resulted in the appointment of a minister for Portsmouth for a short period of time, and the instruction of a significant piece of work by Rear Admiral Rob Stevens, transforming the Solent, a real foundation piece for both projects here, looking at the significance of the maritime economy in the Solent, the potential that the maritime economy has to transition and develop and expand still further, but also some of the constraints that the maritime economy had been dealing with for some significant time. So great growth prospects, but the waterfront sites were under pressure, and that pressure will continue, but at the same time, demand for good access to waterfront employment sites is also going to increase. That linked further back actually to a position established by the Solent Waterfront Strategy, a piece of work we were involved in with Adams, Hendry and Atkins, that looked at these very issues, looked at the challenging environmental issues, the need for mitigation and compensation, and the pressures, of course, from housing development and other uses, the scale of infrastructure and costs associated with developing these sites. Transforming the Solent identified Tipner as an opportunity site. It also talked about the marine hub opportunity, academy, STEM skills training, business incubator use. So really creates a foundation for what it is we're looking to try and do. All of that, however, has now been brought up to date by some very good work by the LEP, which I'll touch on in a moment, but also by Maritime 2050, the government strategy established in 2019 in a post-Brexit era to focus on the marine and maritime economy and the opportunity that provides to increase the very significant contribution that it provides to the UK economy. It recognises the value and importance of maritime hubs. It recognises the Solent as the leading and most significant hub with an opportunity to expand and grow that hub, which is really why we come back to that point. The Fawley opportunity, the Tipner opportunity, they're very much complementary. The opportunity is greater than a single site or even these two sites can deliver. Bringing us bang up to date now, we have the economic recovery plan coming out post-COVID, again telling us that the maritime economy provides a significant and fantastic opportunities, real growth opportunity here, tells us we've got to make the most of these opportunities. And then, of course, in turn, Aldridge touched on it, Solent Freeport also attaches to the opportunity at Tipner. So the summary of all of that is that there is a very, very strong policy support position to bring forward that development at Tipner. Turning to the City deal itself, what was that saying about this opportunity? Again, that significant economic contribution, maximising the economic impact of marine and maritime assets. These assets are extremely valuable. They're under pressure. We know they're in short supply. I think we are duty bound to make the very best use of them. That's making sure that we identify the market opportunity, what the market actually needs, what the constraints and opportunities presented by the site are, and then bringing these things together into a consolidated concept master plan and then develop detailed design. City deal also is about unlocking new housing to support that growing workforce, recognizing there's already a shortage of supply in Portsmouth and across the other unitary authorities. So we can't just expand the workforce without growing the housing stock, and ensuring that we have the right access to skills and employment and training. So absolutely essential part of this scheme as well. So as we start to look at the numbers, City Deal identified 2,370 new homes. In fact, as we look in detail of that, the existing landmass couldn't deliver close to that number, and actually that site couldn't deliver a sustainable community, couldn't deliver the employment and the connected housing requirement, hence the case for reclamation that comes forward. 58,000 square meters of employment floor space. We'll look a little bit later on at what that looks like in real terms, and then helping to create 3,700 permanent jobs. That's both direct and indirect jobs, direct jobs on the site and supported by the supply chain. We of course then have to express all of that and all of our understanding of the project into a scheme objective for planning terms. So coming back to those themes about unlocking a critical employment site at Tipner and Horsey, and addressing the housing needs, maximising the economic impact. Maximising the economic impact, I'll come back to that point. I think we're duty bound to do our very best to make the most of these assets, provide capacity for training and skills development, supporting the regeneration and rejuvenation of Portsmouth, and of course, making sure at the same time that it's a sustainable development and all of those good things that Megan was just talking to us about. The Solent LEP Waterfront Assets Register, fantastic piece of work, really, really valuable. Building off the point about shortage of waterfront employment sites, at the time suggesting that policy protection was required for these key sites that are identified. It's fair to say the policy protection hasn't come forward, but the Waterfront Assets Register still provides a very, very valuable baseline, another one of those foundation documents for us that identifies the value. It gives the planning authorities the tools it needs to recognise the opportunity when alternative uses come forward. I'd like to see the policy support there, but that's not something that Solent LEP can deliver because they don't write planning policy. So the tools have been delivered, it's up to the authorities to pick it up, but it's also up to the opportunity sites to use that the asset register itself to say, this is what we can achieve here. Again, reinforcing that demand for sites was expected to grow, but also promoting the creation of shared assets. Again, because these opportunities are in short supply, if we can create access for a number of businesses and a number of, if we like, anchor tenancies, then the supply chain opportunity that can spin off around the back of that is magnified very, very greatly. We know what marine hubs can do. Tipner West in particular was identified as one of 4 tier 1 sites. There were 3 tiers of sites recognised, tier 1 being the sites that provided the best prospect and opportunities for delivery of marine and maritime employment. And that was about scale of site, access to water, and the nature of the activity and other factors like neighbouring activities. So Tipner, whilst there was 26, I think, tier 1 sites, only 4 of those were seen as being underutilised. And Tipner was by far the largest of those, and showing and displaying all the attributes you need to transition and grow the maritime opportunity there. Arguably, I would say actually at that time, only 2 of those sites were available in any event. So we know we've got that strong support, policy support. This is further reinforced by the assets register. We've got recognised potential to improve access to water. I touched on it earlier. Just off picture on that bottom right-hand image, you've got -3, -4 meters water chart datum connecting to all of the further deep water in Portsmouth Harbour and out into the Solent. We've got good protection from the prevailing winds. We can deal with those constraints I talked about. And importantly, we've got the land mass that will establish itself as the scale of development necessary to deliver what City Deal was envisaged. So City Deal identified it as a strategic site. The Waterfront Assets Register also identifies it as a strategic site, and that assessment really reinforces that point. So we start now to look at the market. What does the market need? Where is the gap in the market? Where are the facilities under-provided? We know that small boat sector is extremely well catered for, and our analysis reinforces that point. So by small boat sector, less than 150 tonnes. But there's a real gap in the provision of facilities between 200 and 1,000 tonnes in terms of the infrastructure provision. There's limited provision above 1,000 tons, and once you get to kind of 2,000 tons, the vessels would become too big for the site. So there's a gap in the market that meets the site attributes. We also know that that gap goes well outside of the Solent. We know that there are similar initiatives, around on the Thames. There's a shortage of waterfront employment sites. There's demand from vessels plying their trade in and around the Thames, and they are having to leave the Thames. They are having to go to the continent. That's a theme I'm going to come back to very, very shortly. Vessels leave the Thames, they leave the Solent, they have to go to the southwest, but most importantly, they have to go to the near continent as well. So there's a significant opportunity being lost. We know also that those boat lift sites, generally suffer from one or a combination of a shortage of water depth, inefficient lifting and launching facilities, limited undercover space, and restricted outside storage areas. So if we are going to make the best of these assets, what I think we need to be doing, we identified early on, was addressing these key constraints. We also know that those sites continue to be lost. They're under pressure, and the sector potential is being unfulfilled. Some very good businesses have been lost to the Solent because of the nature of the waterfront sites that they've enjoyed access to. Wrong business, wrong site. So then turning to the sector, we did our own analysis of the sector. We undertook some early engagement as well back in 2017. And we understand immediately that there's a Solent commercial vessel fleet in that range up to 700 tons that are plying their trade in and around the Solent. And they have to leave the Solent for survey, for maintenance, for repair, for refit. This isn't a case of if you build it, they'll come. If you build it, these vessels will stay at a benefit to the business, at a benefit to the supply chain as well. So we've also identified, and the sector tells us that they have significant opportunities to grow this sector. So it's not just the existing sector, but we can grow that commercial vessel repair and servicing sector. We know that there's demand for super yacht repair and refit. Aldred touched on it. What the UK does in the super yacht field, it's got a fantastic reputation. It does it in spite of the facilities that are provided in the UK. We see, the likes of motorboat manufacturers, production boat manufacturers moving into the super yacht field and trying to do that on sites that are compromised. Conversely, you look to Northern Europe, the Dutch, the Germans are investing, the governments are investing in these super yacht facilities, really underpinning that sector. Race boat. I talked about businesses that have been lost. Fantastic businesses like Green Marine on a very shallow waterfront site. The attributes of the site impact with the way some of these businesses are operated. We know that. We operated until we sold the business in Devon Quay in Gosport. Decent size hoist, very, very small yard, limited amount of space. It dictated the way that you had to operate the business rather than providing all of the services that the sector needs. The offshore renewable sector, advanced technologies, emerging technologies, all significant opportunities where waterfront employment sites can be the hub, can be the focal point. Training, education, research and development. And again, coming back to that point, put all of the components together, the supply chain opportunity is magnified and very, very significant. And it builds off that supply chain that already exists across the Solent. Very quickly, we did a piece of work, looking at that proof of concept. No great surprise to anybody that's in this marketplace what that found, but these were domestic case studies as well as international case studies. The value of the co-location of marine businesses, the importance of access to water, but importantly, the public sector investment significantly justified by those direct and indirect economic outputs, and also the considerable private sector investment that can be leveraged into the scheme. And interestingly for Portsmouth, public sector ownership and operation is not unique. It's consistent with multi-occupier use. That might fit very comfortably in the context of the wider Lennox Point development. Enterprise zone status fits with the Freeport initiatives. So this isn't a new thing. The opportunity is very significant, and the potential for Portsmouth to be involved in the longer term development operation adds another string to the bow. No decisions made yet, but we can think about what the certainty, what the comfort, what confidence that might bring to the private sector as they were looking to come and invest in here. So taking all of that, recognizing what City Deal was trying to achieve, we look to express what those market requirements and what the City Deal requirements might look like on the Tipner site. How do we deal with that? Importantly, as I said earlier on, it's about avoiding some of those constraints that we've seen. So ensure we provide full tide access if we have that opportunity. Looking at a boat facility in the order of 600 to 700 tons. Similar question might arise: is it a hoist dock? Is it a synchro lift? Again, that will be determined ultimately by what do those anchor businesses need. We know what works best in that field, but doesn't necessarily suit every vessel. We know what size vessels will be in that range. We know what the site can accommodate. So we know roughly what size those boat sheds will need to be, what height they would need to be, and then what the mix of workshops and commercial units wrapped around that might look like: offices, stores. So that 58,000 square meters of employment space envisaged by City Deal, expressed there as a bit of a breakdown. Importantly, we can also provide the external open yard storage areas that provides the flexibility to bring different types of projects forward, and also for businesses to grow, develop and evolve, and rather than be constrained by a building footprint today that may not adapt so readily in the future. So we build some of that flexibility in. So out of all of that, I think there's a really strong case for the development of the Marine Hub at Tipner. The policy position, the market gap, the sector demands are all consistent with the site attributes. So conceptually, we can deliver what it is the market might need and ensure we make best use of that opportunity. There's the illustrative master plan. So you see how the marine employment site sits up in the northwest corner, taking advantage of that shelter, again, against that kind of noise zone. It doesn't impact the marine employment business. And some people might look at this and say, well, you've got all the business, all the building units around the outside of the yard, you're creating some separation. Actually, fundamentally, the reason they're positioned there is to create the open storage area, that flexible space that we need. But it does also create, an opportunity to blend the marine employment into the development. Of course, when you have marine employment this close to housing, there are some design issues which the master plan architects are working very hard on with our help and support to understand how that's going to physically function. So look in a little bit more detail about what the components might be of the Tipner and Horsey Island East element. So over here on Horsey Island East, the secondary uses, but still in close proximity, enjoying that connection. There's a bridge connecting Tipner West and Horsey Island East. So the marine component manufacturing we would see over here, incubator space, flexible workspace, opportunity for startup development, secondary marine offices, and then here's the training, research, development, maritime academy piece over in this corner here. So discussions going on with all those education providers, the university, the UTC. And then the main marine employment, the focal point, of course, is the boat lift facility, at the moment illustrated as a large hoist, large turning area, good access into the big sheds, support berthing, and then those support businesses wrapped around the outside. So that's all conceptual. It fits. We can make best use of the asset. Now, actually, we want to understand what does the industry need. So we've started this process of a market sounding, or we've actually taken some early market sounding work, and we've got focused deliberately now and directly on the marine sector and said, please come and engage with us. I think we've advertised that very reasonably well. Lorna, Will, thank you for your help for getting that market briefing out using your tools. We've had some very good responses. Technically, that briefing, also that sounding process has just finished. I'll provide the link on the next slide. If you want to engage, there is absolutely still an opportunity. So we really want to raise awareness of the opportunity, look at the feedback, what is it the requirement need, understand what the specific sectors might need, how we make best use of that, how we can develop that concept design, and really test the market appetite right across the board, from the very smallest businesses to the biggest businesses, to investors, developers, potential operators. We've had a very encouraging response, further reinforcing the point that we couldn't accommodate all of that all of the responses on this site. That's both domestic responses and international responses, big businesses, small businesses. So reinforcing the significant opportunity that exists. So there's a link there to that sounding. If you'd like to engage, if that's not live when you look at it, do please contact me, because that engagement is going to continue for a period. There's a briefing document. We're looking for some company information, key comments about the nature of the interest, and the sort of feedback we're looking for is, broadly speaking, what sort of organization you might be, what scale of employment would be provided, the nature of access, the nature of your business, what vessel launch recovery arrangements you might specifically need, if that's appropriate, and then what property you're looking for. And that provides an opportunity for future engagement. So that most certainly will continue. So a quick summary of all of that. We have a well-located and an excellently connected site. We can provide full tidal access. We can address some of those other constraints. Very, very strong policy support position to enable the development. We've demonstrated that we can deliver the market requirements and can address those key constraints. And City Deal identified the Tipner location as a strategic site. The Solent Waterfront Assets Register did the same thing. What we have now done through our work is really identified why Lennox Point and the marine employment component in particular, why it is a strategic site, and really reinforce that very, very strongly, I think. And there is a massive opportunity because of all of that. We can deliver what the market needs, genuine opportunity for Portsmouth and the Solent. So there is that ongoing market engagement. It's an opportunity to get involved. Do please reach out, make contact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Lorna's had to make an early exit, so I'm going to just take over with the hosting. So anyone have any questions for Mike or Megan about the Lennox Point development at all? I'm just going to keep an eye on the chat, so probably easiest to pop your questions in there if that's okay. Okay, so I've got a question from Steve. Small boat sector catered for. I'm a small marine business based in Portsmouth. The plans seem to overlook smaller maritime businesses and startup affordability, focusing on large scale shipbuilding and super yachts. What opportunities will there be for people like us, as there's no real waterside areas within Portsmouth or Langstone Harbour available to be able to develop and build on our business? I think, Mike, do you want to take that?
I do. I think the startup space that we're looking at Horsey Island East, I think that the site can accommodate both big and large. The big employment numbers are going to come, and the big investment is going to come from those larger businesses. So that there necessarily has to be a focus on that. That's not at the exclusion of other opportunities. So Steve, do please engage with the market engagement if you haven't already done so. As I say, that process is ongoing. It's just finishing. So give us time. We will then get round to all of those responses and continue to engage with the sector. So, very definitely an opportunity there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. I'm just having a look back. I don't think there were any other questions yet. I can see that Lorna and Will have clarified for everyone that the meeting is obviously recorded and it will be available. It will be shared with the after meeting communications, as well as being uploaded to the Maritime YouTube channel, so you will be able to share with colleagues and have another look over the presentations. Sue Maynard is asking, will this project offer opportunities for apprentices and creating employment opportunities?
Yes, absolutely, very definitely. Megan, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so we're already starting to look at the apprenticeships and what we can commit to. So we've got T-level students starting work experience with us next year. We've got a careers week in October, so we're already starting that journey quite early in terms of the talent pipeline. We are looking at committing to a certain number of apprentices and making sure that we can embed them within the programme. And yes, we're looking at over 2,000 jobs, 1,700 of which will be within the marine employment sector alone. So yeah, we have a really strong commitment to bring those apprenticeships on board.
Fantastic. Is that okay, Sue? Did you have any follow-up? Oh, I think you do. Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to, Sue, if it's easier.
Oh, I see what she's asking. Will this also include the build? I mean, I think by the infrastructure. Yes, I mean, I think, part of the sector engagement that we're doing with the supply chain, absolutely. And I think that balanced scorecard that Megan touched on will deal with the obligations that we'll be looking for those major developers, contractors, to invest in and commit to local employment and local training and education.
Superb.
Absolutely.
So, Mike,
and in the
sorry, Mike.
Oh, sorry, Sue.
So I work for Midas Construction, and we very much work on various projects where we have employment skills plans, and it's just obviously we do generate quite a lot of social value. We had a project over in Southampton at the Southampton crossings, which was student accommodation, and we generated over 12 million in social value on that particular project last year. So it is really vitally important, and through that, we are able to bring in youngsters to not only just in obviously construction, but obviously going forward it will be maritime. And my background actually is maritime. I was in the marine industry for 24 years prior to coming across to construction. But we've seen a work experience from year 10 come all the way through to now actually just being employed this year on our grad scheme. So it is vitally important, and these types of projects do allow these to sort of come to fruition.
Couldn't agree more with you, Sue. Absolutely.
Thank you, Sue, for that. I've got a question from Gareth. Gareth Roberts, will be great to see an expansion on the waterfront site, availability to address the supply issue. Shared facilities are also something the industry is interested in. Tipner was supposed to be delivered a long time ago. What issues prevented that, and how will Lennox Point be different?
Yes, Tipner was supposed to be delivered a long time ago. Megan will regale us with stories about people who will tell us that they had her job 20, 30 years ago. And I think Tipner's been a prospect for, over 50 years. But I think what Portsmouth have done, recently is really up the pace. And, the site assembly piece, what City Deal has done is it's transferred the MOD firing range land. And, we do recognise we've still got some significant environmental constraints that we have to address. There is a route, there is a process, some significant compensation required, but that is something that it has a process, and we have to follow every step very, very carefully. And I think that's why that strong policy support position, the overriding public needs case that we can demonstrate here for the marine employment and the supply chain, and again the engagement of the sector telling us that they'd like to be involved, and they tell us what your pressures are, what your needs, what the opportunities are, that actually can only help to reinforce that case and help that process.
And just on that as well, reassuring that the proposals now are further than they ever have been in this programme. So that is how Lennox Point is different. And I think by the fact that we set a far better vision for what we wanted to achieve, the interest and the engagement has just skyrocketed. So the last 2 years have completely transformed this programme, and we, as you will have seen as well, we got permission in October to proceed to submission of planning. So a huge step for the local authority. So that's a little bit of reassurance I hope we can provide.
Thank you both. I'm going to ask one last quick question, so we'll have to move on to our final speaker. So from David Robinson, out of curiosity, where did the Lennox Point name come from?
Yeah, of course. So Charles Lennox, Duke of Richmond, his mother was the Duchess of Portsmouth, but he was actually responsible for bringing the gunpowder magazines, which currently sit on the site, from the city centre. He recognised the importance of the city centre and how that could be a community space, and the magazines were moved by him to Tipner. He was considered a radical for his time, and we hope that our proposals are considered pretty radical. And what we did was we took a whole bunch of words out to the public, and Lennox was in there. We also had some interesting characters come forward that we weren't aware of, but we put a whole bunch of words in, and their name was chosen by them. So Lennox was a historical character that we had in there along with various different other people, and we kind of let the public make their choice. So Lennox Point was what came out of that focus groups, and the images I showed at the beginning was sort of the Blue Peter homework from that. So yeah, that's where he has quite a strong link to the site, and we liked him as a character in history, and the name was chosen by the public.
And it's worth just perhaps then just touching on, we haven't mentioned Phoenix Quay today, but you will start to hear that over time, which is the name that will be attributed to the Marine Employment Quarter, Marine Employment Hub, And it's that armaments piece, because that armaments piece at Tipner was HMAS Phoenix. So we can make all sorts of analogies about something rising from the ashes, but actually it's founded in that existing that historic use of the site.
And interestingly on that as well, we've got A-level students doing all the branding for Phoenix Key. So that will be coming out hopefully at the end of this year. So that's quite exciting as well, getting involved early on.
Fantastic, that's great. Thank you both so much. I am now going to pass over to Emma Frost from Crofton School in Stubbington. Emma is organising a mock interview event in December, and I know you're hoping to build some stronger links with the maritime community. So away you go, Emma.
Lovely, thank you. Hopefully you can all hear me. Thank you for inviting me today. It's been brilliant listening to both the presentations this morning, and it sounds really exciting, and it'd be really good to see how they progress over the years. Just a little bit about Crofton School. We're based in Stubbington, Fareham, and we've got approximately 1,080 students from year 7 to 11. I'm the careers coordinator, and I have been for the past 2 years, although last year proved really difficult for careers for obvious reasons. So we had to postpone all activities for students. So we took the chance to have a look at our careers programme and see how we could involve the students more in local businesses. And we're hoping to, over the next years, to increase our relationships with local businesses in the south, especially the marine industry being where we are. So it'd be lovely to be able to get on board with some of you to see what we can do for the students. What we're really looking for potentially is something for years 7s, 8s and 9s, maybe visits to workplaces or do workshops led by employers. We can either do that on school or we can go off-site, hopefully if travel is allowed. So that's something that we're really excited to do, because it's something we haven't been able to do for quite a long time. The main event this year is the mock interview day, and we're hoping to bring on some more employers to help us with this day. We've done it this year, but very, very limited, because obviously we had to do it virtually. So we're hoping to be able to do it in person in December. So we'd like to take this opportunity to bring on some new employers to help us with that. And I know the students really enjoyed it this year, and they have done in the past as well. And our final thing is to maybe do something for the year 11s, because they seem to have been left out this year. So we want to maybe be able to take them to the schools, have employers into the school to talk more about apprenticeships, because that's something we're really trying to push in this time at the moment, because it's obviously great opportunities for them, and also maybe to be able to do workshops with you guys. So that's really our plea today. So it would be really lovely to be able to get some new employers on board. Obviously we won't be able to use you all at the same time, but it'd be really just nice to build that connection with you. If you want to contact us directly, that's absolutely fine. My email address is efrost@croftonschool.co.uk. I'll also pass this on to Lorna, and obviously if you want to come on board, or can tell us about exciting things that you're doing that we might be able to engage with, that'd be fantastic. And that's it really from me, really short, but I'm really looking forward to meeting with you, some of you, and working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Emma. And yeah, I really hope you get some people reaching out to you. We'll definitely share your contact details as well after the meeting. So hopefully you can connect with a few new businesses.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So I do have a couple of notes from Lorna that I just wanted to sort of remind everyone of before we sign off. So Will, first of all, can you confirm the August date, so the date for the next meeting, if possible?
That will be the 25th of August.
25th of August, perfect, thank you. And then Lorna has said, just to remind you all again, I know she mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting today, about the Maritime UK Solent first anniversary video interviews. So it'd be really good if anyone is happy to provide quotes or to do interviews for that video, to share some of the value of being involved in the Maritime UK Solent community. Lorna's also said that we're hoping the September meeting will go ahead as a face-to-face meeting at the Southampton Boat Show. Provisionally, this should be on Monday the 13th of September, and it will be a networking meeting, so can accommodate 6 or 7 speakers. and Lorna's looking for maritime sector volunteers from the network to talk about their organisation. So please do reach out to Lorna or Will if you'd like to spotlight your business. Of course, the meeting will go ahead virtually if we're not able to meet in person. So please do reach out, and hopefully you can share a bit about your organisation. And I think that's it for today. As I said, it's the recording will be circulated, and you'll be able to look back on those wonderful presentations. Lots of information in there. Thank you all for attending, and thank you to our speakers. And yes, I think we'll leave it at that.